Hello and welcome back to Gary and Reva Versus of the Devil Episode 1. We are at the trial. It has taken longer than I expected to reach this, but that's not a bad thing. I really love how in-depth and how detailed this episode has been, especially compared to Episode 0, which I suppose as the free prologue makes sense that it's sort of a lot shorter and less involved. But it is now time for us to go to trial about whether David Asher committed suicide or not. And I am fairly sure I know what happened. Alright, maybe fairly sure is a bit of an overstatement. I think I know what happened. Just a preliminary hearing, huh? You wouldn't know it from the look on her face. But I shouldn't have expected any leeway once we stepped into the courtroom. Not with her. That's the adjutant up there? Is it asleep? It's loading. It needs to load? Don't be rude. Not every ad can afford to be decked out as extravagantly as you. No, look at her face. Especially not those the state buys in bulk. There's an audience. Oh, you mean the gallery? That's nothing. Could have been a lot worse. Word of any trial on the case of David Asher's death must have spread like wildfire, even a mock trial like this one. Detectives like Reyes or London would get chewed out for leaking things to the press. But uniformed officers had little to lose and a lot to gain by dropping a text to their attentive friends in the media. And then there's the corporate plants. Interns usually, preferably ones with modded eyes. It's illegal to film inside a courtroom, but this is the year 2086. Things are going to get out one way or another. I don't like having my face on camera. I don't like attention in general. But I'm not such a coward that I'd skip David's funeral just because there's paparazzi outside of it. My pretty little likeness was going to end up in the background of some tabloid photograph one way or another by the end of this circus. At least this way it's decent marketing for my legal services. What will happen once the adjutant finishes loading? How will the trial proceed? With all those films you've watched, I'd figure that you could extrapolate. I'm asking to correct any misconceptions. Well, not everything you saw on the silver screen is outdated. The court will come to order, there will be a clarification of the charges. The defense enters a plea, and if it's not guilty, the prosecution begins making their case. That means calling witnesses to the stand, correct? Mostly. Sometimes they'll testify virtually from a separate location. Depends on the security concerns surrounding the particular individual and the case. What do you do then? Sit here and watch? Not if I want to get paid. I cross-examine witnesses after the prosecution are done questioning them. I can present evidence or witnesses of my own in response, as long as I have discovery backing me. You've said that before. Discovery means... Just that I can't pull stuff out of my pockets and present it without any kind of context. This isn't Phoenix Wright. I have to have proof that I acquired it legally during the course of my investigation. Most of the time that means having recordings or witnesses that can verify my investigation. Which I can provide, except that time we hacked a computer. You didn't think I was letting you tag along because I liked you, did you? And the jury, I don't see where they would sit. The jury hasn't sat in the actual courtroom for years now. They have their own chambers where they watch a feed of the trial's proceedings in anonymity. And that's not an issue? Don't people want to look someone in the eye before passing judgment on them? You've got an old-fashioned sense of justice, don't you? But there's no jury at a preliminary hearing anyway. It's only meant to evaluate whether or not the prosecution has enough evidence to go to trial. A mere formality in today's day and age. With tools like optics and arcs, there's never any shortage of evidence to work with. So all you have to do today is convince the adjutant? Easier said than done. Adjutants leaned heavily towards evidence over arguments. And right now, all the evidence suggests that David killed himself. going to be an uphill battle. I can't afford to stumble. I need focus on establishing an alternate interpretation of the facts, and it needs to be solid. But I don't have a suspect, well I do, or even a motive, well I do, for killing David, yet. Anyway, I'll need to be sharp. Emma doesn't play nice enough for me to be anything less. I think it's waking up. This third lower court is now in session, adjutant AD84 presiding. Look at the eyes! God, I love the ad designs in this, is so good. I call to order the case of People versus Asher. Do the people wish to make an opening statement? No, Your Honour. No point in bothering when it's just the adjutant here. Very well. Do the defence wish to make an opening statement? Not at this time, Your Honour. Might as well ring the bell and get this shit show started. If neither the people nor the defence wish to make an opening statement, then it falls to me to set the stage. My modelled name is Adjutant. My unit designation code is AD84. I am a machine, an automated dependent, and I serve the state by presiding over trials. You might find yourself wondering why. What gives a machine the right to judge a human? I didn't expect this when I gave her this voice, but I'm okay with it. A fair question, but the answer is simple. In every culture, in every society, no matter how it is worshipped, enshrined, or deified, justice has one defining quality. Justice is beautiful. Weird. The way... I mean, that's not the prettiest expression to pull while saying that, but it's cool that you can see her eyes. No, look at her. Like a balanced equation, like the golden ratio, like the Vitruvian man, justice is beautiful. So what gives me the right? This gorgeous bod. I mean, that explains a couple of things. Moving on. Is this not normal for an adjutant? Whatever, forget it. Forget I said anything. I was trying to lighten the mood in this suicide trial, but I can see everyone hates me. Look at the hair, so pretty. Do the trial without me, they're guilty or whatever. What? A profile for 80. Likes raw salmon, running water, and gymnastics. As in, observing or performing? Dislikes criminals, contrarians, and pigeons. Libra, self-assigned, open, obedient, observant, people. Wow. 3 sizes. Oh my god. Not what I expected from my judge today, but moving right along. Your Honour? Wait, what the flip? The defendant's already dead. Why are we doing this? Is this a debug thing? 'Cause I'll log the error if I need to. No, Your Honour. This is a preliminary hearing to determine whether David Asher did in fact commit suicide as he... Homoo, I get it. You want to make sure he wasn't cuckoo in the cranium before you cut up his will like a T-bone. I didn't realise that students were so lively. They aren't. They're supposed to be austere and statuesque. Looks like we got served the most in need of repairs adjutant the court system could find. Whatever paper pusher we rushed to get this trial must have wanted a little payback for the kindness. What's that look for? Could it be your trying to size me up, blushy face? Wouldn't dream of it, Your Honour. Good, because if you have doubts about my ability to run this trial, I could always enact summary judgment here and now. I'm sure you'll find my ruling to be fair and even-handed. That won't be necessary, Your Honour. She's much more of a character than I'm used to seeing up there, even counting all the flesh and blood judges I've met. But she's still just an adjutant. She'll follow the evidence where it leads. So as long as I can make a few adjustments for the occasional... Presumably this means the reason this is the case is so that arguments are more of a thing. You know, if she has a character, that means she cares about character, you know? Outburst from the bench, my plan's still workable. So, people, shall we get started with that first witness? Right away, Your Honour. The people called Dr. Yumi Sato to the stand. I wonder if we're just going to get to meet all of the people we've encountered, because there have been a lot of interesting characters in this. Like, the variety, like, I was just looking through the old, I was looking through the thumbnails I've used in this series, and yeah, just almost everyone has an interesting, different character, and this is fantastic. It's Yumi. I cannot remember her voice. Hey. So how about it, pretty lady giant fist in the air? You swear to tell the whole and unadulterated truth to the best of your ability? I do. Good enough for me. Dr. Sato, you were in charge of the autopsy for David Asher, were you not? I was. And when did you make your examination? I started last night. Well, technically 1 AM would be very early this morning. I think you can still say last night if you're talking about 1 in the morning. Objection. The defense... Wow, that was cool. I should have got that for this thumbnail. The defense will have their opportunity to cross-examine. Until then, you should refrain from making errant remarks. The hell? All I said was... Yeah, what she said. You mean sustained? Don't get cute with me, counsel. Wow. Okay. Being cute is my job. God damn, we've barely gotten started. That seemed pretty bad, Adone. Making mistakes will increase your blind. Cool. Blind is how much credit you'll lose for answering incorrectly when you yourself aren't controlling the ante. Blind increments on its own throughout the trial as the stakes get higher, but resets at the end of each day. There are multiple days? Presumably for other trials, if this is like a like the first one, it's unlikely that this will be like a full multi-day jobby, because it's just a preliminary hearing. That's pretty cool. Blind starts at and caps out at a higher number if you're playing in high roller, which I am. Mind the blind number in the top left when it appears. -1. It helps you gauge what you stand to lose. Adorable. We should try to avoid being penalised in the future. Thanks for the tip. Shake it off, I'll get my chance to raise objections of my own soon enough. Dr. Sato, were you able to determine the cause of death? He passed away due to respiratory failure. Could you explain what that means to the court? I mean, could you... objection. Grammatical incorrectness. That should be, could you explain to the court what that means? Otherwise, it's what it means to the court, rather than what it means being explained to the court, you know? Essentially, he wasn't getting enough oxygen into his blood. It seems by the time he arrived at the hospital, he was no longer breathing. What does respiratory failure look like? What are the symptoms? There will be lightheadedness, dizziness, fainting, pale skin, and a bluish tinge around certain extremities. And the condition he was in matched those symptoms? Correct. In your experience, what are the most common causes of respiratory failure? It can be caused by injury or disease, but the subject had no wounds or reported illnesses and otherwise appeared to be perfectly healthy. And what else could cause respiratory failure then? It's also commonly seen in fatal drug overdoses. Drug overdoses. Did you perform a tox screen on Dr. Asher? Yes, but his tox screen came back clean. Whatever killed him, it wasn't something we've encountered before. Wait, a clean tox screen? Clean? Dialogue will proceed automatically during testimony, but you can still choose to advance manually with continue. You'll need to read carefully and wait for the witness to make a statement that sounds wrong. Then hit the call to call their bluff. Hover over the call or toggle Insight to focus on claims within a statement. Insight can be disabled. Testimony will loop until you call. Can't let this chance slip by. I need to catch a mistake the second it comes out of her mouth. It wasn't clean? Oh yeah, it wasn't clean. Both because, A, he'd been drinking, but also there was the unidentified substance. So yes, it wasn't clean. Yeah, whiskey. Oh yeah, the contract and the upright cup. The subject passed away due to respiratory failure. Essentially, he wasn't getting enough oxygen into his blood. Oh, so the blind is 3 now. He would have experienced lightheadedness, dizziness, then fainting. The subject was healthy. It must be attributed to a drug overdose. It came back clean. After choosing to call on a statement, you need to respond with evidence. Maybe I should have waited to see if that was the right one. Look over the 3 cards that show up and confirm your card before the timer runs out. Not poisoned. This one. Wanna bet? Oh, wow. It's impossible for David Asher's tox screen to be clean, and we all know it, since he was on camera drinking alcohol the night that he died. Ah! That makes sense. Oh, successfully object to testimony for the first time. Got an achievement. And that scared you? The witness merely misspoke, Your Honor. I mean, she's the chief medical examiner. Like, at least in... If stuff that I've, TV and movies that I've seen are to be believed, practically half the job of the chief medical examiner is testifying in trials. I mean, even in something like this where sort of their trials aren't that common and such, I imagine she would still testify enough not to make a slip up that obvious. But I guess, for the tutorial. Or she's just not good at her job. I don't know that well. As it plainly states on the tox screen itself, Dr. Asher did have alcohol in his blood, but not as such a concentration as to be lethal. Yeah, my bad. When I said the tox screen was clean, I just meant it didn't tell the attending physicians anything they didn't already know. Overall, a little more nitpicky than I like to be, but at least I was able to balance the momentum, more or less. Shall we continue, Dr. Sato? If the tox screens were negative for pharmaceuticals and drugs, what caused Dr. Asher's respiratory failure? During my autopsy, I analysed his blood and was able to isolate a foreign compound. Right, yeah, so that didn't show up in the tox screen, but the alcohol would have. So there was a lethal dose of a drug inside his body. It just happened to be a drug that the hospital had never encountered before. That's correct. I would say that's testifying. She shouldn't say that. She should get Sato to say that, instead of getting Sato to agree with it. Anyway, I think we're all going to get tired pretty fast if we don't at least pick a placeholder name for this substance, Your Honor. The people don't object, Your Honor. In that case, I'll put all my creative heuristics to work coming up with an original scientific fitting name for this substance. A name like Omega 3. That name is already taken. Fine, call it Delta or whatever. Delta, used in science to denote an unknown variable. Not bad. Delta has other meanings when it comes to drugs, but yeah, our Delta matches no known public pharmacology or toxicology reports. That being said, chemically it does have all the hallmarks of a general depressant. I know the feeling. So it stands to reason that it would exhibit a similar effect on the body when ingested. You say ingested. Why? I eliminated all other possibilities during my examination of the body. He must have swallowed it, and judging from his stomach contents, it must have been a liquid. Oh. Well, there goes my salt. Or it could have been dissolved in the liquid. Thank you, Dr. Sato. Shall I summarize things for the court? Yes, please. I wasn't listening that closely. The victim died of respiratory failure, and his tox screen showed his blood was clear of anything that could cause respiratory failure, except for this unknown substance, the poison we've labelled Delta. Well, that sounds like a textbook suicide. Should we wrap it up here? Not quite yet, Your Honour. This may clearly be a poisoning, but there's at least one detail about this case that doesn't feel like a suicide at all. Well, it's not going to be the unknown substance, because that doesn't tell us anything. It's got to be Young's testimony, because it's not the whiskey, because negative for poison means the whiskey wasn't poisoned. The testimony didn't see him add anything corroborated by cam footage. That's the bit that means it's less likely suicide, because if he didn't add anything, how did the poison get in there? You know, as she said before, they have to prove that he knowingly... Oh, it's a classic suicide. Oh, wow. They have to prove that he knowingly put poison in his drink. Or ingested poison. So it's got to be Young's testimony. Drank with David before he died, didn't see him add anything. The people shouldn't get ahead of themselves. There's nothing textbook about a supposed suicide that had a witness sitting there watching it happen. As you say. Well, now I'm lost. Was this poisoning a suicide or not? If that's the case, then perhaps we should give the defence the opportunity to cross-examine. Unless they're going to insist on testifying themselves, coming from you, who just did. How kind of you to offer. Ball's in my court now, so how do I counter? Emma's argument basically goes as follows. David ingested the Delta knowingly, and the Delta causes respiratory failure. He died of respiratory failure, thus David committed suicide. During Blackjack. Wow, okay. Every piece of information you learn deals you a card. Choose only the questions that are logical and relevant, and only press if you think a line of questioning is worth continuing, or else you'll go bust and lose credit. Select the press option to see what the follow-up question would be. You can only win Blackjack when you reach 21. So don't press further if you're already there, and don't ask the wrong questions. So I'm at 12 now. This is such a cool mechanic. Well, I'll see how it plays out, but it looks cool. With my cross-examination, I need to put a microscope over the weakest part of that argument, and hope that some cracks will appear under pressure. I mean, at the moment, they haven't proven that he put it in. I mean, is it on me to disprove that he put it in, or is it on them to prove that he put it in? Because Occam's razor, poisoning is more likely. Now, it all hinges on how the poison got in there. Are you sure it was ingested? Yes, we know that for certain, because there were no injections, and it's very, very unlikely it was inhaled, because there were no inhalers found, and no one else was affected. It was definitely respiratory failure. It has the hallmarks of respiratory failure. Are you sure Delta is to blame? Oh, I don't know. None of these are good lines of questioning. And the blind is 4. Let me have a look. Cause of death, respiratory failure. That's... Is it going to be the ingested? I mean, we don't have proof. Inconclusive. So it's inconclusive if it was in his cup. Oh, God, I wish I could save. This is definitely going to come back. The salt shaker. The cap was loose. That's the important part. Why was the cap loose? Completely unexplained. Completely unaddressed. Oh yeah, here we are. Alcohol was the only thing identified, so I did have the tox screen. I didn't realise I actually had that. I think it's got to be, are you sure it was ingested? because, like, respiratory failure, that is conclusively proven by the autopsy. They know how he died. We know Delta is to blame because there was nothing else in his system that it could have been. But ingested is the only thing that we aren't 100% certain on because it happened off screen, so to speak. Dr. Sato, you said that the subject had to have ingested the Delta orally. But how sure can we actually be about that? Pretty sure? I mean, I could go into detail about all the cavities that I checked, but... No, okay, stay. Are you sure it was respiratory failure? Isn't it possible that he actually died from something other than respiratory failure? Well... Piss! I went bust. Damn it! Well, no, not really. Damn it, I should have pressed further. I should have pressed because it gave me a low card. It only gave me a 2. I should have pressed further, that was my hint. Whereas going for that one dealt me a really high card because they were very certain about it. Damn it. You could argue or speculate about what caused the respiratory failure, but it is in fact a fact that he died because his heart and lungs stopped working. Yeah, I knew that. Right, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's got to be this one. So at least I didn't lose, I just went bust and it gets reversed, so... pretty sure? Yeah, press. How sure can you be? Well, we can't be sure of that. Certainly not just from an autopsy. You said it must have been a liquid. Would it have been a large amount? Depends on the concentration of the delivery solution. It could have been just a drop. The kind of thing that could easily go unnoticed, yes? Calls for speculation, Your Honor? Withdrawn. Oh man, I wanted to jump on her case. I guess I have to go for this one, so maybe that was just the all-out wrong one. Are you sure Delta is to blame? You're only able to identify the presence of Delta after hours of work. Can you really be sure this never-before-seen chemical can cause respiratory failure? Well, I've had time to run simulations and they do give every indication that it would act as a depressant. Ingest enough of any depressant and respiratory failure would occur. What did she say? Ingest enough of any depressant. Oh god. I mean, this is my only option. I pressed on the only other thing. How does this work? Do I have to hit 21? Or can I just stay because 20 is a damn good result? Yeah, I don't really know how this works, so I'm going to press. You've ran simulations? So you haven't tested Delta on an actual person? Anything other than an ace and I would have bust there. No, I haven't. That would be very difficult to do given our extremely limited sample, not to mention highly unethical. Of course. But without such a test, you don't actually know for sure that Delta can cause any of the symptoms you've described. Was there a question in that statement, Counsellor? You don't actually know for sure, do you? No, not yet anyway. Seems like that's... Blackjack. And I only bust once.